All right. Good morning, everyone. So let's start with our harmonization reading. So I'm going to read text 89 from Living Spring. On our journey, Jesus asked him, "What would you like me to do for you?" Each student has a lesson to learn. Each worker has been entrusted with a task. Each vase has its usefulness. Each struggler has an ordeal to endure. Thus, each of us has our own individual testimony on the road of life. We often fail at our commitments and thus greatly increase our debts. Yet, in our redemptive endeavor, we beg the Lord for his mercy, compassion, and help. The question the Master asks of the blind man from Jericho is highly meaningful. However, what would you like me to do for you? This question shows us that the beggar's delicate position was in line with the imperatives of the law. Nothing happens in absentia of the divine principles. Blind Bartimaeus knew how to respond and ask to be able to see. Nevertheless, how many people prayed for access to the Savior's presence? But when asked by him, they answered their own detriment. Let us remember that sometimes we may have to lose our earthly home in order to learn the way to our heavenly home. On many occasions, we are abandoned by those we love the most so that we may return in the divine bonds. And then there are the times when the wounds of the body are called on to heal those of the spirit. And there are situations in which paralysis teaches us how precious being able to move is. It is natural for us to ask for the Master's help in our afflictions and difficulties. Meanwhile, let us not forget to work for the good and on the most painful passages of rectification and ascension, convinced that we invariably find ourselves in the most just, beneficial, and deserved opportunity of work, and that maybe, for the time being, we do not know how to choose anything better. So let's close our eyes. Let's raise our thinking, our thoughts to our Father, God, to Jesus, our Master. And first, express our gratitude for having this home of love, for having this opportunity every day to learn a little bit more, to learn and improve in our journey, to absorb Jesus' teachings, to keep learning and improving our moral. Let's ask for our guides, for the spirits of light to guide us, not only today, but every single day, providing us courage, providing us the strength that is required to go through our journey, to learn maybe with our mistakes, and to learn with every single experience that we have asked to go through in this life. So be it. Okay, so today we're going to talk about fear and what's the relationship between fear and with the existential meaning, meaning why we are here incarnated in this on this earth, and what has been the reactions that we have when we have that feeling of afraid or the feeling of fear. So the source, all the material I took from Cura Espiritual do Medo, das Fobias e do Pânico, from Spiritist project from Fraternity. It's a great, I've watched a couple, and I want to do part 2 of this lecture, because today we're going to focus a little bit more on the understanding why fear exists, right? But then Alirio and the Spiritist project goes into what can we do, and what are some of the techniques, and what can we do to if we see that fear is going into what we're going to say pathological fear, what can we do to avoid that? I'm going to touch a little bit, but there's more to it. So, initial reflection. So I'd like you to think with yourselves about those 3 questions. How do I feel as an immortal spirit living on this earth that is a trial and expiation world? How do I react in situations that are unknown to me or that I haven't experienced before? New situations. And what is my reaction when something doesn't happen the way I was expecting? How do I experience that? So let's start with a little bit of some concepts. So when we talk about fear, there are 3 types of fear according to Alirio. We have temerity or reckless. Temerity is temeridade in Portuguese. We have like the regular fear, and we have the pathological fear. So let's talk a little bit of each one of those. So let's talk about regular fear. So what do you think? Is fear all bad? No? Why it's not all bad?
Because of your instincts. You have to, if there's a dog coming to you and wants to bite you, you're gonna be fear of being hurt, right? So you're gonna have your fear of react about it.
Exactly. So regular fear is connected to the primary survival instincts. Yes, if I'm walking there in the park and I see like a big dog and trying to bite me, of course I have to protect my physical body. So God gave us that tool that we're going to run away and avoid to be hurt. And fear is acting as the main response of a flight or a struggle. The dog, or if there's a big rain and I just want to protect myself, right? And when there's danger, it is related to prudence, to avoid the damage to the physical body that might endanger someone's life. So as Carol said, fear is part of survival. And God gave us this instinct to protect ourselves. And actually, Marcelo, we have a doctor here. It's part of the chemistry, right? There's a chemistry that goes through our body just to trigger that fear. So that is what everybody's supposed to have. So that's okay with that part of fear. Then, and only the person who is afraid can also feel courage. And what is courage? Courage is the act through it, when we act through the heart to overcome that fear of what does not put you at risk, surrendering and self-confident to the lessons that life invites us to learn. So it's natural that we have fear. It's natural that we might be afraid of the unknown, right? So let's say that we need to write an exam. Maybe it's a tough exam to get a job or anything else. We might have a little bit of fear. It's like, oh my God, I need that job, and I'm a little bit anxious of that. So that is okay. But then I want to face that fear with courage. And it's important to think about that whatever happens, I might not get the best grade, I might not get the job that I was hoping for with that test, but what happens is we will learn with that, right? I recognize that I have a fear that I'm going to do that, but whatever is the outcome, I will go with courage, believing in myself, and whatever the outcome, I will learn with what happened later. But does the exam that I'm going to write threatens my life? What happens if I just don't get it? If I just don't get the grade, or I just don't get the outcome that I was looking for? Nothing, right? So it's important to have that mindset that is okay to have fear, and we need to have what we also talk a lot here, that apprentice feeling, right? Whatever is going to happen with that situation, I will act with courage, with all the efforts, and I will do my best to go through it, but whatever the outcome, I will learn with it.
I guess it's because some people don't want to face frustration, so sometimes they don't even try, or sometimes they don't even go ahead. But
you're jumping the gun.
Oh, sorry.
But that's perfect. We are going to talk about the frustration for sure. Yeah, because. Yeah. So when we contrast what Kara just said, right? So we have the normal fear, like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit angsty, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I still going to face it, and whatever the outcome, I'm going to learn. But when we talk about the pathological piece, because I just want to avoid that frustration, I'm not going to get it. I'm going to be upset. We're gonna avoid that experience. We're gonna miss the opportunity of learning something, and we always gonna be questioning ourselves. What if? What if? What if? What if I have done? What if I have studied? What if I had prepared more? What if I had that job? So that what if, it's what we need to transmute, to transform into courage. Have the mindset that we will learn something with that situation that we're facing. So that is regular fear. So let's talk about the temerity. So a person who is not afraid of anything cultivates temerity by acting recklessly and without being prudent, endangering his own life and often the life of others, without thinking of the consequences of his acts for himself and for others. So if you look at this first sentence, a person who is not afraid of anything, doesn't that feel like, oh, that's awesome? I'm not afraid of anything.
Brave.
So brave, right? I don't care. So at a superficial kind of analysis, you say, that's great, that's where I want to be. Because if I'm afraid of anything, I'll just go for it. Superhero. But then if you keep reading, it's actually like a mask, right? It's actually something, then you are on the opposite, where you just don't care. You just don't care with you first, and you don't care with others, right? And that self-confidence is actually, it's false, right? Because I'm not recognizing that there's a fear and I'm going to overcome with courage. I'm just removing everything and acting with no prudence and recklessly. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of, it's modern, right? In this modern world where everybody wants to go to extreme adventure, right? I'm gonna jump, I'm gonna go skydiving, and I just don't care. Because what I'm looking, or those persons that are focusing only that, they're just looking for that momentary energy, right? I just wanna get more. And as I get a little bit more, I want more, and I want more, and I want more. And I'm kind of distancing myself to actually what am I looking for, right? Why do I need to keep injecting that adrenaline? Is that to forget something or to run away from something, right?
Bring meaning sometimes.
Sorry?
To bring some meaning to your life.
Yeah.
But some people, they need some, like, I need to put some meaning to my life. I need to be, why I'm here. And they're trying to find their feelings on this kind of stuff that doesn't bring anything. So you just put your life in danger.
And actually, you're putting what you really is about here in this life to solve just under the carpet, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get more pleasure. It's just about that rapid injection of pleasure to forget what is really meaningful and what we really need to work through.
They think this might be the meaning of life, but it's not, right? I don't know how they think exactly, but they assume this is the meaning. I think this is what will make them happy, but it's temporary feeling.
Would you say it's more common among people that do not believe on, the afterlife? Because if you assume that you don't have this life, why
So why?
actually care?
Yeah,
That's
true,
a
right?
great point. Yeah.
Because I'm focusing on the now and I want to take, the experience and the pleasure and whatever, right? So imagine someone who's single, has no family, no parents, no kids, no wife, nothing, and is completely addicted to a dimension and truly believes that that's the end. When I get old, I won't be able to do that. And once I die, it's over. So why not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's
everything they can.
Yes, absolutely.
There's that say you only live once,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
And what we call it's very materialist, right? And life is short. Let's enjoy it. Yeah, that's a great point. So we talked about the regular one, the regular fear where, yes, it's normal. We have the other opposite where we just don't care at all. And then there is what the literal talks about, that's the pathological fear. So the pathological fear is one in which the individual feels incapable of leading and affirming himself in life, in fear of everything and everyone. Believing himself incapable, he is beset by the natural challenges of existence and can, to an extreme degree, become paralyzed for fear of suffering the damage. So now we understood that we have the natural fear, we have the one that doesn't care, and this is where people see fear on everything, right? And the fear is so intense and so strong that I feel incapable, right? I feel like I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna be just in a room, locked in a room because I don't believe in myself, I don't believe in life, I don't believe in God. And that will prevent the human being to experience what we talked before, the learnings that we've asked to learn here in this life. And here, it's not about the physical integrity, right? Because if I have a fear that I'm going to be wrong, if I have a fear that people will judge me, so that's I'm not risking my life. My mind is creating such strong arguments for myself that this becomes a disease, right? And where is it coming from? Is from those egoistic process that some people are not willing to solve, right? So if I'm afraid of going to commit a mistake, I just don't want to be judged. So, okay, I'm just going to be here, don't do anything because I'm going to avoid that judgment. But if I am avoiding that judgment, I'm missing the opportunity of learn. And there's something in me about judgment. And if you talk about reincarnation, something has happened in past lives that I might have judged, and I need to learn now how not to pass judge and how to accept the judgment that others might do for me. So nowadays, more and more people are becoming addicted to this pathological fear. We only live once. With the materialism and the hedonism, hedonism is all things about material. We only have this life, and I search for pleasure at all costs. Being worshipped to exhaustion, there is a loss of the existential meaning, and fears are becoming increasingly abstract and enlarged. So for that materialistic person, that person might only look for the pleasure, or might only look for material things, right? Happiness for me and the meaning of my life is to buy a new car, is to buy a new house, is to go to expensive trips. But then, because he only puts all the trust and puts all the focus on the material things, that person might start, oh my God, if I lose my job, if I don't have more money, and then starts being worried and being afraid of all those futures and material things, then it's all that fear that is dominating and taking care of the life. And today, in this world that we live, everything needs to be fast. It's fast-paced. I need return as soon as possible. And then that person loses pleasure of living the life, loses the meaning of searching for the person's existence. And that person is always afraid that won't have money and doesn't live in the present. It's always living in the future. What happens if? What if I don't have money and I can afford another house? What if I don't have money and can afford the brand new car, the brand new cell phone, or the newest technology that will be released tomorrow?
But it's kind of endless.
It's endless, yeah, because you're always finding something new, and you put all your focus on a thing that will disappear. And we know that this life is just temporary.
And when you're gonna die, and everything will be here.
Yeah.
So what's the point?
Exactly.
And I just want to make a comment. We're talking about the person wants to accumulate things, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not things. It's about how people see me. Let's say I'm a renowned doctor. I'm anyway, I have a profession, or I have how people see me, and I don't want to be judged. I don't want people to think that, oh, what if I'm not that great person anymore, or that in that position anymore? So that also is part of that, because when we get older, of course, we're not capable of doing certain things. We can do other things better, but not everything. And then that becomes sometimes, look, I cannot get older. I cannot do this. And because people are going to judge me, or I'm not going to be able to do those things anymore. And it's also like how we relate to ourselves, how it's not just accumulating, because some people, it's clear that they just want to work to get more things. Some people just want to be like the famous Spiritist speaker, for example. That could be that too, right? And there are examples in the major meetings, reunions we have, when some spirits come and say they are so focused on the things that they left behind, and they don't want anyone else to use them. Like, oh, but I worked so hard and now I have these and I left this behind. Oh, this person, that person, are using what I left behind. So even on that moment, when they know that they are not incarnated anymore, there are some that will still be focused on those things. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Where is your heart? Your treasure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So as we've been talking, there's a fear of everything, a true polyphobia that has been taking care of humanity, because the human beings has lost the address of itself. This is evidenced in great consumption of illicit and illicit drugs to try to reduce the great physical suffering. being the fear, the phobias, the panic, and some of the most recurrent. Some people, because they kind of lost the track, lost the address of themselves, they go into, okay, I'm just gonna solve that with drugs. We're not saying here that sometimes there are some chemical process that needs to be regulated by drugs, but those drugs need to go into the root cause, treat the root cause, and then go into the normal path. But some people will go to illegal drugs just to numb their conscience, right? Just to forget everything that he or she needs to work on. And this has become even more and more, and especially if we talk here about Calgary, with all the fentanyl and the drug crisis that we are facing here. A lot of people are abusing those, and some committing suicide and other more serious acts. But then they try to avoid solving those problems, right? Or not problems, or the issues at hand, or the things that they came here to solve in this incarnation. So the human, they suffer of this lack of existential sense, entering in a surge of the power of any cause. So I want just get more, as we just talked, more money, and we go into the pleasure and sensual, and trying to diminish his fear and existential anxieties. But the more they do it, is more empty that they feel, right? It's kind of that circle. It's get more and more and more, but it's very paradoxical because you get even more empty. So Alirio says that the fear is the pathological fear is a disease of the spirit, and will only be healed with spiritual practices, with the real pursuit of the meaning of life. So what is the origin of fear? Where does it start?
Our egoistic feelings, maybe?
Related.
Lack of confidence, self-confidence.
That's a result.
Lack of faith.
Because we, as we just said, we lost our address. We don't know why we are here. So we are very insecure. Why am I doing this earth? Right? So we have that natural fear that protects us from us getting hurt. But that deep insecurity of why you're here is one of the biggest oranges of that pathological fear, or that fear of everything. And it's the lack of reflection about our mortal spirit. Not only about why I am Luis now, but why I am as an immortal spirit as a whole. So Jesus, through one of his passages, give us, with his brilliance, all the guidance and all the information that we need in order to go through this and to prepare ourselves and deal with those fears and challenges that we have. So do not let your hearts to be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. So try to remember one day that you kind of felt anxious. What happens when you feel that anguish? What happens to your body? When you feel that extreme fear, that's not a fear that is protecting from physical damage, but it's a fear that you cannot explain. What happens to your body?
Your heart races, you might have stomachache, headaches. Like it becomes a physical.
Yeah. So there's that, for me, that kind of that constriction. Yeah. Like it seems that it's like pressuring here my chest, right? So as Alirio explains, there's something happen in this spiritual piece that's your chakra. right? There is that fear is interfering into the flow of that chakra, and all my forces is starting to get inhibited. It's kind of, I started to build a wall for me to think straight and to actually understand what is happening with me. And that, in a even more a more comprehensive understanding, is not only myself blocking my thinking, but it's myself blocking from life, believing in life, believing in me, believing in life, and believing in God, right? It's me not practicing, or me not working on the issue at hand that I have to work on, that I have to go through. Alida also mentioned that sometimes there is a kind of that mystification. Oh, believe in God, you're all safe. All good. Just believe it. Do you think that is the way to go? So I believe I'll be safe? No? So why should we believe in Jesus and God then?
I think it's, for me, it makes sense if I believe that there is a God that created everything, and then there is a purpose for us to be here. And even though, yes, I do fear for my physical body, or for my people I love, but it doesn't, whatever happens, we know there is a purpose for it. So, but we have to do our part too. Not just going to believe and be, well, I believe in God, I'm safe, I'm going to cross the road without looking at the sign. So that's not it, true, right? Yeah. But, yeah.
And we know by question 155 from the Liber of Spirits, right? So we are all born ignorant, without knowledge. But how do we progress ourselves? By approaching ourselves to the truth, right? So Jesus tells us the way, I like to say the roadmap, and Jesus tells us how to get closer to the truth, right? So
Jesus says to know ourselves.
Yeah, so that deep reflection, if I want to work on my spiritual health, it's not possible if I don't follow the roadmap that has been presented to me, right? And if I don't follow the truth, how I'm going to take care of my health? And we all know that we will get to that life, to that relative perfection, right? We all know that the path is here, the truth has been presented to us, but we need to do our part. We need to do our efforts to work on that, right? So the great problem with insecurity is that it generates that pathological fear, causing the person to mentally create unreal dangers and to leave them as they are true. And I can say that sometimes my head my mind plays a lot of tricks, and I create a perfect story and a perfect fear that makes all the sense that it's going to happen, and that avoids me to pursue or to work on whatever I need to work. So this movement originates in the fear of the unknown, the future, of others will think, of ridicule, failure, rejection, and so on. So Carol already spoiled that. So what is the expectation that the spirit is trying to get rid of? So if I avoid a situation because of fear, what am I trying to avoid? Frustration. So frustration, according to Illyrio, is kind of the root cause of all the pathological fears, along with our insecurity, existential insecurity, is what we are trying to avoid. Because let's work on an example. So if I'm going to do something and I'm worried about what people will think about it, so I just don't want to be frustrated. If I don't want to commit a mistake, I just don't want to be frustrated, right? So frustration is kind of the key feeling that we avoid with fear. But where do we live now? So what's Earth? Can we avoid that? So if we keep trying avoiding this in this world that we have, am I going to be quote unquote successful, or am I going to work on the things that I need to work? No. So frustration is the key feeling, is the key expectation that we sometimes as human beings are avoiding and kind of accumulating all those small frustrations that at some point, those small frustrations might result in big frustrations, what we can call big phobias or big anxiety, or it can result into big depression, right? And he also uses a very simple example, because we don't have kids yet, but when you have kids, if you punish your kid, he or she will say, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore because I'm going to be punished, right? Sometimes. Well, not all the time, right? So we do the same. I'm just not going to do that because I want to avoid frustration. But at the same time that we have this mechanism, we can flip it and take advantage. And okay, let's go through it with courage that we have and learn whatever we have to learn as we go through that situation. And even if I'm frustrated, I'm going to learn things that I did right that didn't frustrate me, things that I didn't work quite well. What can I do to change? And for the next time, that frustration it won't happen because I know what to do. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So the spheres create some real goals that plague the individual. It can generate phobias which often paralyze person's actions. Throughout this process, which usually begins with conflicting situation, the individual does not solve, accumulating until it triggers more serious process associated with other causes. What I just said, maybe it will cause some depression, anxiety, and so on. So let's use another very simple example. So let's say that we need to do the dishes. So every day we need to do the dishes. So if we don't do the dishes today, tomorrow will the dishes do itself? But we might have more plates, and we can just use plates that are not dirty. Third day, we didn't do the dishes. The third day, will the dishes do itself? No. However, with dishes it's easy. We can buy new plates, right? But with our existence, can we buy a new body? If we didn't solve or work in what we have to work today, will that solve tomorrow itself? What's going to happen with the troubles that we didn't work on today for tomorrow? It just gets bigger, bigger, and bigger, right? It's kind of, it gets into a snowball. And sometimes a small thing, and yeah, he actually uses an example. Someday, someone is starting to have a panic attack. Did that panic attack just emerge at that time? It's an accumulation of everything that person did not work. He also talks about sometimes we take such a great care of our physical body, right? We need to exercise. Women, we might take care of your hair or anything. But we stop for maybe 5 minutes to pray and to connect with our immortal spirit? So he uses two terms that I think is interesting. We have our immortal spirits that we have to take care, and we also have the incarnated immortal spirit that we have to take care. And sometimes we take care so well of the incarnated that we just forget about our immortal spirit, right? And if we keep accumulating that, the consequences might be too damaging. And it will be harder for us to work on and figure out when we are in that snowball. Instead, if we focus on the small pieces that we have to work on, that will be better.
And it's interesting because when we can deal with the little things,
Mhm.
even if we don't have the end results that we would like, but we, at certain level, we're successful with that small thing, we see that, yes, I can do it. So that enforces the self-esteem, so I can deal with this. And then next time when something else happens, you may be able to, oh, I did that, so I can maybe try. If I can, let's say someone has social anxiety, I cannot go and be like the funny person in a group of 100 people, but if I put myself, oh, I'll go to that small meeting, I'll go. So you don't have to go to face your fear to the extreme to solve it. You can do steps, right?
Yeah.
But oftentimes we pose ourselves. I don't want, I can do it, and I have this label, whatever, and then the ball goes and you can't.
And Jesus talked about that. So there's a passage. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Right? Where should we focus? Should we focus on the past, present, or future? Present. Because the future, what are the two characteristics? Now I forgot the word in English. From God. So when you say tomorrow? Attribute. Well, when you say tomorrow, what are the two attributes of God that is taking care of that for us? Yes, it's omnipresence, omniscience, sorry, omnisciência, and no, providence, right? So God will provide. God is taking care of us. But what is our role here? Each day, work on those small pieces. It's our daily effort that we need to take care about ourselves. Physical, yes, and also immortal spirit. And I love this passage. It's very, I like to end with this because this is very consoling for me. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you find rest for your souls. Because my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Right? Questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you.